There's a fantasy that most people carry about transformation, the fantasy that it happens in a moment, that there's a specific day, a precise event, a clear turning point where you stop being who you were and start being who you want to be. That change has a face, has an address, has an identifiable before and after. And this fantasy is reinforced by everything you consume. The overcoming stories edited at just the right moments, the transformation accounts that jump from rock bottom to the mountaintop in 3 paragraphs, the turning points presented as if they were lightning bolts falling from the sky and rewriting a life in an instant. The reality of transformation is completely different. And it's more demanding, and it's more silent, and it's less cinematic than any narrative you've ever heard about it. Real transformation doesn't happen in a moment. It happens in 1,000 small moments that individually seem to mean nothing. It happens on the unremarkable Tuesday when you did what needed to be done, even without wanting to. On the ordinary Thursday when you chose the hard thing when the easy thing was available. On the Sunday afternoon when you could have rested with a clear conscience and went anyway because you knew that going mattered more than the rest. None of those moments feels transformative while it's happening. None of them has a soundtrack. None of them has a camera. None of them will appear in the summary of your life that you'll tell others. They seem insignificant because they're small, but what you don't realize while you're inside them is that each one deposits something, a thin, almost imperceptible layer of who you're becoming. And those layers accumulate. Slowly, non-linearly, sometimes with no visible sign of progress for weeks. And then suddenly, you look in the mirror and the person looking back is different. Not because something dramatic happened, because 1,000 small things happened while you weren't paying attention to the process, you were just executing. This is the paradox of identity construction. You can't see it happening while it happens. It's like watching a plant grow. If you stand there staring, it seems like nothing is moving. But if you leave, live your life, come back weeks later, the change is undeniable. Personal transformation works the same way. You don't see the progress in real time. You see the delta, the distance between who you were 6 months ago and who you are now. And often that distance surprises even you because you were so deep inside the process that you couldn't see how much you were advancing. And this is precisely why consistency is so much more powerful than intensity. Intensity is seductive. It appears in bursts, produces visible results in the short term, and feeds the feeling that you're doing something great. But intensity without consistency is a flash fire. It burns bright and extinguishes fast, and in the long run leaves less trace than a smaller but constant flame. The person who trains with moderate intensity every day for a year arrives infinitely further than the person who trains with maximum intensity for 2 weeks and stops. The muscle isn't built on the heaviest training day. It's built in the accumulation of all the days, especially the mediocre days, the days when you showed up but weren't incredible, the days when you did enough, and enough was what the process needed in that moment. But consistency demands something that intensity doesn't demand. It demands that you continue when there's no immediate reward, that you show up in the process before the process delivers anything back, that you invest without seeing returns, work without seeing results, build without seeing the structure take form, and still continue. Not because you're certain it will work, but because you decided you're the kind of person who continues regardless. And this is the hardest point of any construction journey. Not the beginning, which has the enthusiasm of the new, not the end, which has the energy of arrival, the middle, the long, silent, unglamorous middle, where most people stop and where those who arrive are forged. There's a concept that high performance athletes know well and that most people have never experienced: the pleasure of the process for the process itself. The satisfaction that doesn't depend on the external result, that doesn't need approval, that isn't conditioned on reaching a specific goal, but that exists simply because You're doing what you said you were going to do, being who you said you were going to be, maintaining the commitment you made to yourself in silence, without witness, without contract, without anything beyond your own word given to yourself. That pleasure is different from any other. It's clean, it's yours. And it grows as identity consolidates. Because the more consistent you are, the deeper the sense of integrity that comes from honoring what you set out to do. And here's something very few people recognize. Most of your development is going to happen in complete anonymity. Nobody is going to applaud your 6 a.m. sessions. Nobody is going to see the hard choices you made when the easy path was available. Nobody is going to document the days when you were at your limit and went anyway. The world will see the result if and when it appears, and will assume it arrived in some more direct, more linear, less costly way than it actually did. And you're going to have to be okay with that. You're going to have to find your validation in the process, not in external perception. It's going to have to be enough for you to know what you did and how you did it and how much it cost without needing anyone else to know it too. This capacity to act without an audience is one of the rarest and most valuable that a human being can develop. Most people can only maintain effort when there's recognition. When effort goes unnoticed, when work generates no applause, when dedication isn't acknowledged, the tendency is to ease up. It's human, but it's limiting because the most significant growth of your life is going to happen far from anyone's eyes. It's going to happen in the work sessions nobody asked to see, in the decisions nobody will know you made, in the moments when you chose what builds you over what entertains you, what develops you over what comforts you, what takes you further over what keeps you where you are. And all of this without witness, without record, without any proof to show the world except the result that eventually emerges from all that invisible work. Because in the end, the person you become is built precisely in those moments, not in the big ones, not in the visible ones, not in the ones that make it into the summary, in the small ones, the silent ones, the ones nobody saw and that you almost didn't do. It's in those moments that your real identity is sculpted, slowly, without drama, without audience. And when the sculpture is finished, when the person you've become is standing in front of you, you'll look at them and recognize every choice that built them. Every early morning, every refusal of the easy, every time you went when you could have stayed. Nobody wakes up one day being the person they wanted to be. You become that person when nobody is watching, and nobody's watching right now. Go.